So, will you guys please give a warm, rocky welcome to Chris Baker? Give it up.
Hey, what's up, guys? So I'm not fresh out of prison, so that's good for you guys. But yeah, my name is Chris Baker. For those of you who don't know me, which is probably everybody, I'm Tanya's husband, Tanya Baker. You might know her. She works with the middle school kids. And I've got 3 boys running around, Blake, Caden, and Chase. You probably don't see me around here because of my dispatch job. So I have kind of a weird schedule, and I end up working Sundays. So that's why I'm not here. It's not because I hate church, or again, it's not because I'm locked up in the clink somewhere, but it is just because of my schedule. So that's why you might not see me. Sometimes when I get a Sunday off, if you go to church here, you might see me on Sundays, but if not, that's why. And so, like Matt said, I'm a 911 dispatcher for Sheriff's Department, local Sheriff's Department, and I like to do art. I like to create art and use the talents that God has given me. And I also am a dad and stay pretty busy with that. So what's kind of weird is that I honestly don't feel like I'm much older than you guys. I'm 39, but in my head, I feel like I just got out of high school. So having 3 boys that one of them's driving is kind of crazy. So we'll just get into my story a little bit about who I am and where I came from. I'm in a good Christian home. So I've got 2 parents that love me very much, that raised me. You would expect from just a kid being raised by 2 parents with Christian values. I grew up with my dad, who is not my biological dad. He's the one that I've known my whole life as my dad, so that is my dad. But my mom's story is that when she was 19, she had me, wasn't married. The person she had me with, they didn't stay together. They weren't even together at the time. And so my biological father I never knew. And so I learned from a very early age, and I knew right away, I've always known that my dad was not my biological father. But I also knew that decisions that you make can reach long-term and have consequences that go beyond what you think and what you expect. But all that to say, I was raised in the church. I was raised with a big family. Again, only child, but I had a lot of cousins, aunts and uncles that lived local, and we did a lot of stuff together. And so I grew up in a church in Broomfield, and in 1994, I was baptized and made the decision that that's what I wanted to do, but it was more out of fear. It wasn't as much because I decided, hey, I want to follow Christ. And I made the decision to get baptized, but strictly really based out of fear in deciding that I needed to make a decision to avoid eternal suffering, right? So I'm growing up in the church. I'm a good kid. I'm well liked by my peers, by the people I go to church with. And we're going to fast forward and get through my middle school years, which is awkward for some people. It was a little awkward for me at times. But we're going to get into high school. We're going to jump ahead up into my sophomore year. So my sophomore year, I'm sitting around in the library doing, I think, a school project or something with a couple of kids. And conversation starts coming up about partying and drinking and things of that nature. And I was sitting there being like, yeah, that's not something I do. That's not going to be part of my life. That's not what I'm interested in. That's nothing that I want to take part in, right? And they're sitting around kind of dumbfounded because everyone at the table had already been partying for a couple of years by this point. And so we're sitting around having this conversation, and one of the girls in the group, she looks at me and she says, I guarantee by your junior year of high school, you'll basically be an alcoholic. You're going to cave and you're going to give in, which is, if you think about it, it's not very great, right? She's not really rooting for me to pull this one out. So she's telling me that this is going to be my path. And I'm telling her that's not the case. I'm like, you know what? Nope, that's not how I was raised. This is how I think. This is what I believe. And that's not going to be my story. So we're going to keep pushing forward a little bit. Okay, we're going to get into my junior year. So the very next year, junior year of high school, I think it was about homecoming week, sometime probably around this time. I might have been after the football game, I don't remember, but I'm going off with some friends and I end up at a party. And I'm not sure exactly what to expect and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm there with some friends. I probably lied to my parents about what I was doing. And when we get there, right off the bat, somebody offers me a little bit of like chewing tobacco. So I'd never done it before. I throw a dip in and didn't taste great. It was awful, but it made me feel really weird, right? And I thought, man, if this is what chewing tobacco does, I wonder what other things do, right? So fast forward from that party, literally just like an hour later, we end up at somebody else's house, some stranger, some person I don't know, and we're in an apartment, and there's alcohol flowing and all kinds of stuff. And I sit down and I'm hanging out and I'm thinking, I still really don't know if this is the right choice to be making, but I'm going to go ahead and go with it. So I have some friends who had been drinking before, and they convinced me to take several drinks in a row. I had no idea what to expect. But they told me, oh yeah, just do like 4 of these. You'll be fine. It'll be good. And before you know it, like I'm fully drunk at this point. And so what's funny is that you might hear this term like a gateway drug or gateways and think that's stupid. But literally that same night, I went from some chewing tobacco to alcohol just within the same night. It was just literally like an open door. Like, well, if I tried this, I might as well go to the next level, okay? So there I am at this party at a stranger's house. I sleep there, spend the night at somebody's house I don't even know. Again, I'm lying to my parents, trying to figure out how to get away with what I'm doing. And what that does is that kind of sparked basically a habit of lying, a habit of hiding, a habit of deceit, and kind of a dual life. And so from there, what seemed as just like a small little event started turning into regular partying. And so as often as I could, I was trying to drink. I was trying to pursue other things. And so eventually drinking led to recreational drug use. And with recreational drug use, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. I felt invincible. I don't know about you guys, but when I was your age, I felt like nothing could stop me. I was going to live forever. That's how I felt, probably until I was 30, honestly. But here I am kind of branching off into recreational drug use. And recreational drug use, there also comes me spending time looking at things that I shouldn't be looking at on the internet, videos, pictures, things that nobody should be opening themselves up to, right? Stuff that took up my time, that created more lies and more deceit. It helped me kind of compartmentalize and say, this is a different part of me that I can hide from people that respect me, that know me. And so although I had respect and love from people at my church and teachers and things like that, there wasn't a lot of people, I think, that knew this other side of my life, okay? And so from recreational drug use came drug abuse, and came regular drug use, and came, not just, hey, I'm going to party and see if somebody's got something available, I'll give it a shot, but it came into regularly using things, and regularly using things with alcohol, doing stuff that's extremely dangerous. Some of the stuff that I did, I know that people have died doing because they're mixing things. They're taking crazy amounts of things together, and it doesn't work out for everybody. I've known people who've overdosed and had bad situations and didn't make it through. Thank God that wasn't my story. Thank God that I'm here, and I made it through that portion. But what I want to show you and talk about is that idea that everything was just a little bit of a step leading up to something else and leading to a little bit more and more, right? Now, I was living this dual life, and my parents had a rule for me. They said, I don't think they knew exactly what was going on. They might have had a little inkling to what was happening, but their rule was no matter whatever I was doing, I had to be at church on Sunday. So I would be out partying until 3 or 4 a.m. and then try and get some sleep because I knew I had to be at church or I was going to get in trouble. And so I'm leaving this dual life where I'm partying and then I'm showing up the next day at church reeking of alcohol and the previous night's issues, and I'm there greeting people at the door. Or I'm serving communion because I was on the team to do that, and I'm just living this dual life. But with that said, my parents had this rule that was important, that I had to be there at church on Sundays. Now, one of the things that I had going for me during this time was my best friend at the time. My buddy at the time grew up in the church as well. And so we were kind of partying together, but I knew that he had that grounding and that same faith system that I had. And so even when times were really low, I was able to talk with him, and I was able to tell him what I was going through, and he could tell me. And so in that moment, having that friend that had that same basic faith system and belief system that I had allowed me to have somebody to be a sounding board to talk to to throw things at, saying, hey, I know that I'm living this way, but I know that it's not right, and I know I need to change. And sometimes we would drag each other up. Like, he helped me, and I think God was using him in my life, but God was also using me in his life. And so there were times where I could pull him up out of the mud and the dirt and the filth, and we would maybe stay clean for a while and not do anything. And then we both fall back. And so with that, I know that God used him in my life, and he used me in his. And so what I'm saying is that doesn't mean I'm telling you guys you have permission to go out and live crazy and wild as long as you've got that good Christian buddy. But no matter what you're going through, and if it's low points, if you're down, if you're going through something, if you're doing something that you shouldn't, having somebody that you can count on is important. Having somebody that believes what you believe is a good thing. And so in January of 2005, we were sitting out. Both of us had a ton to drink, and I was sitting on the porch, and I told him, I said, I'm fed up, man. I can't do this. I'm 20 years old. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know where we're going, but I can't party like this anymore. And he told me, he said, hey, why don't you come? My dad has been pestering me about going to this college group ministry at his church, and I would like you to come. That way, if it sucks, I'm not there by myself. And so I agreed, and I said, let's go. So January 2005, I show up, and the first time I'm there, the guy who's running things, he's not like a 60-year-old guy in a suit like what I grew up with as a preacher. He's 30 years old. He's got normal clothes on, and he's talking about drug addiction. He's talking about alcohol use, and he's talking about being free from that. And it instantly connected with me. It wasn't just some old stuffy guy talking to me about hell and damnation. I was all in. I said, man, I was looking for a way out. I think this is it. And so by April of 2005, so 4 months later, I'm part of the lead team there. I'm leading worship. And at that point, I made a decision to actually really basically re-give my life to Christ and say, this is what I'm doing, not because I'm fearful, but because I know that you have a better way for me, and I know that I can follow that. I broke down. And I realized in that moment that I can't do this dual life again. I can't slip back into this. And so I had made mistakes throughout this process. And I still make mistakes. And one of the big things I want you guys to understand too is that when I was your age and I would look at people in the church, the adults, I would think they've got everything figured out. They must have it all together. I bet they don't sin. I bet they don't have any issues. And I'm here to tell you that at almost 40 years old, I still got issues. Okay, I'm not slipping back into old habits like that. But I'm not perfect. I don't have it all figured out. I'm on a faith journey just like you guys. Following Christ. And that's what one of the things is that I really want to have you guys understand and take away. So through that, I want you guys to understand that God used my parents telling me I needed to be in church, and God used my buddy in my life to help bring me out. And so some of the big takeaways, the two big takeaways I have for you guys is number one is don't sell your long-term future for short-term pleasure. Because it's going to seem super easy just to say yes to a couple of things. And before you know it, your life could end up like some of the other people I know who aren't as lucky as I am, who didn't have a situation like I did. And so I'm going to read a verse for you on that one. It's Romans 12, 1 through 2. And I'm going to read it from the Message version because I like the way this says it. It says, so here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work and school, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit in without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out, readily recognize what He wants from you, and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you and develops well-formed maturity in you. So that verse is just talking about not selling yourself short, because God has a plan for each and every one of you. If you're not already in it, you will be eventually if you can just follow Him. And so you might think that He doesn't have a plan or that you've got other ideas, but He's got something bigger and better in store for sure. And the second thing I want you guys to understand is to surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good friends. My parents having that rule for me to be in church every week on Sunday was beneficial because no matter what I was doing, no matter how I was living, every week I was getting the word dumped into my heart, hearing that, being surrounded by people that were living a better way. And I think that paid dividends, right? And I think that made a difference in my life. Whether I knew it then or not, I was frustrated by it because I can tell you there was plenty of times I didn't want to be there Sunday morning. but having to be there and surrounding myself and having good friends and people that had that same faith system made a huge difference. And so the verse for that is going to be 1 Corinthians 15:33. And it's just a portion from that, but it basically just says, bad company corrupts good character. And so it's good to be a light in dark places. I'm not telling you that you can't have friends that don't believe what you believe. What I'm saying is that make sure that wherever you are, that you're a light for somebody else, or that you've got somebody who's a light for you in that moment. And that's really the big takeaways. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pray us out real quick and then hand it off to Matt. So God, thank you so much for your love. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for showing up time and time again, God. No matter how many times that we think that we are just going to fall on our face, you're there ready to pick us up and help us, God. Lord, I pray for everybody in this room. I pray for everybody listening, everybody in the other room, God. I just pray that you would speak to them through these words, God. Just open their hearts, open their minds to what it is that you have in store for them. Help lead them down the path that you want them to go down. Help them make good, wise decisions. Let them find those people that they can connect with and let them plug in and follow you. God, I just ask that you would bless this week, bless them at school. God, remind them that you are here, that you're not there to be the dad shaking his finger saying you screwed up again. You're there to be the dad to pick them up and say, I love you and I've got you and we'll get through this. And just praise you and honor you in Jesus' name. Amen.
We're wrapped up for the night, and Ethan had just some, he wanted to send us off with a couple words, all right? So, Ethan, take it away.
Hey, everybody. Does everybody hear me for the mic?
Yeah, they're good.
So, did everybody have a good night? Oh, that wasn't good. What? Did everybody have a good night? Yep, that's better. Okay, so I just wanted to say that you guys are the best youth group I ever had. So I have a little thing to tell you. There's Rice Krispies down in the lobby.